Greetings candidates and welcome back to the lesson. Today we are going to continue with the topic audit related assurance services. Audit related assurance services. In our last session we said that these are services that go beyond the traditional audit of financial statements. Today we are going to consider special audit assignments, and we will discuss two types of audits, that is the social audit and the environmental audit. Now, candidates, special audits or special audit assignments such as the social audit and the environmental audit go beyond the traditional financial audits to assess an organization's performance in non-financial areas. All along we've been discussing audit of financial statements. But the social audit and the environmental audit are non-financial audits. The audits focus on just evaluating the organization's social and environmental impact, as well as sustainability practices and compliance with relevant regulations and standards. So we're going to discuss some few aspects of social audits, then we'll discuss a few aspects of environment audits. So let's begin with social audits. Social audit assignment. Social audit. Now, what is a social audit? First of all, what is a social audit? Now, a social audit is a process of evaluating and assessing an organization's social and ethical performance. It involves examining the organization's activities, policies, and practices to determine their impact on various stakeholders, including employees, customers, communities, and the environment. And the objective of a social audit is to ensure that the organization operates in a socially responsible manner and contributes positively to the society. That's the objective of a social audit, to ensure that an organization operates in a socially responsible manner and contributes positively to the society. That's the objective of a social audit. So we are going to highlight a few key aspects or key points in relation to social audit. And the first point is stakeholder engagement. Stakeholder engagement. Now, social audits emphasize the involvement of stakeholders throughout the audit process, and that includes engaging with employees, engaging with customers, engaging with suppliers, engaging with shareholders, engaging with local communities, and any other relevant parties to understand their perspectives, to understand their concerns and their expectations from the organization. So that's the first thing, stakeholder engagement. When carrying out a social audit, it may involve engaging stakeholders, those who have an interest in a company, the stakeholders, those who have a stake in the company. I've named some of the stakeholders. So a social audit would entail talking to them, getting their views, interviewing them, and getting inquiries in order to understand their expectations, in order to understand the problems they have with the organization, in order to understand their concerns, their perspectives, and so on. 2, social performance assessment. Assessment of social performance of an organization. A social audit assesses the organization's performance in areas such as labor practices, in areas such as human rights, in areas such as community development, areas such as environmental sustainability, areas such as product safety, because the company may make products for consumption by consumers. So the social performance assessment may entail also looking at product safety. It can also involve matters like corporate governance and so on. So this assessment also examines whether the organization is meeting its social responsibilities and complying with relevant laws, regulations, and industry standards. Assessment of the organization's social performance. Assessment of the social performance of an organization. That's what a social audit may entail. First of all, we said seeking views from the stakeholders so that the auditor can learn about the concerns, the needs, expectations, and so on. Here is to measure the social performance of an organization, and that can be done by comparing the performance with standards, because organizations have social responsibilities towards the society, towards stakeholders. So the auditor may assess the performance of an organization, and that may entail checking if an organization is meeting its social responsibilities and complying with relevant laws, regulations, and standards. Social performance. And I've said this is also the assessment of areas such as labor practices. Now this one is related to maybe the employees. What are the organization's labor practices in relation to employees? I also mentioned human rights. Does the organization respect the rights of the stakeholders, like the community, like the employees and the suppliers, and so on? Environmental sustainability, product safety. Are the products produced by the company safe for consumption? Because the company has a social responsibility towards the consumers of its product. So are the products safe? How about corporate governance? Corporate governance simply entails the way an organization is managed and governed. Does the organization adhere to corporate governance principles and regulations? So the auditor would want to assess the social performance of an organization. Does the organization meet social responsibilities towards the stakeholders? And does the organization comply with relevant laws and regulations and industry standards? That is a key aspect of social audit. Another aspect of social audit, number 3, the third one here, 3, measurement and evaluation. Measurement and evaluation. Now, social audits involve gathering and analyzing data, involve gathering and analyzing information related to the organization's social performance. And this may include conducting surveys, carrying out interviews, site visits, as well as reviewing relevant documents and reports. That's what social audit may entail. And the collected data is then evaluated against established benchmarks and indicators to assess the organization's performance and identify areas for improvement. So if you are to carry out a social audit, that's what you may do as an auditor. You may conduct surveys, you may, in the process of gathering evidence, with the top management, interview the employees, interview the stakeholders. We mentioned here stakeholder engagement, the stakeholders, interviewing, carrying out surveys, and even doing site visits, visiting the employees at different branches, visiting the local community, carrying out surveys, interviews, and so on. That data is collected, then evaluated against standards or benchmarks or indicators in order to assess the organization's performance and then identify areas of improvement. Evaluation. What is being evaluated here is the data that has been collected, the information against a certain or given standard. 4, transparency and reporting. Transparency and reporting. Now, social audits promote transparency. Social audits do what? They promote transparency. And not just transparency, but also accountability. They promote transparency and accountability. How does that happen? That happens by ensuring that the organization's social performance is communicated to stakeholders. And the audit results and findings, candidates, are typically documented in what we call social audit report. I've talked about transparency. I'm now saying that the findings of a social audit will be contained in a social audit report, which provides a comprehensive overview of the organization's social impact, an organization's strengths, weaknesses, and recommendations for improvement. That is what will be included in this report. I also mentioned social audits ensures or encourages transparency and accountability. Social audits promotes transparency, promotes accountability. And how is this transparency and accountability promoted? It's because after gathering all this data, this information is shared or communicated to not only the management, but also to all the stakeholders, the employees, the suppliers, the debtors, the shareholders, the local community, and so on. It makes the organization to be transparent and accountable. Reporting. Transparency and reporting. Then another aspect of social audit is what we call improvement. Improvement. Number 5, improvement. Improvement, and improvement comes by action planning. Action. Improvement and action planning. Improvement and action planning. Candidates, a social audit not only identifies areas of improvement, but also helps in developing action plans to address social issues, thereby enhancing the organization's social performance. It involves collaborating with the stakeholders to define goals, to establish targets, and also implement initiatives and promote social responsibility and sustainability. Six, integration. Integration. This is another aspect of social audit. The information gathered or gained out of the social audit, the recommendations and findings can be used to integrate. The social audit can be integrated with business strategy. Integration with business strategy. Now, candidates, social audit encourages the organization to integrate social and ethical considerations into organization's business strategy. Social audits, we can also say, highlights the importance of aligning social objectives with the business goals and values, ensuring that social responsibility is embedded in the organization's core operations and decision-making processes. So these are key points as far as social audits are concerned. The syllabus requires us to study social audits and environmental audits. So let's discuss environmental audit. That's social audit. Let's have environment audits. Environmental audits. Now, before I give some key points on environmental audits, I need to mention that the social audit provides a systematic approach to assess and improve an organization's social performance. We can also say that social audit helps organizations understand their impact on society. It also helps identify areas of improvement, and then the organization can work towards being socially responsible and sustainable. And by conducting social audits, organizations demonstrate their commitment to corporate social responsibility and contributing to the well-being of stakeholders and the community in which the organization operates. That's social audit. Now, coming to environmental audit, first of all, we define an environmental audit. What is an environmental audit? Now, an environmental audit is a process of evaluating and assessing an organization's environmental performance and its compliance with environmental regulations and standards. So on one hand, we have standards. On the other hand, we have performance of the organization as far as environmental responsibility is concerned. So by checking the performance of the organization against the standard, that's what we are calling environmental audit. It is a process of evaluating and assessing the environmental performance and compliance and its compliance, an organization's compliance with environmental regulations and standards, because organizations operate in an environment that is regulated. They operate in a space that requires them to adhere to certain environmental laws and regulations. So that's why it's important for a company to carry out environmental audits to find out if the company is complying with environmental regulations and standards. And it involves a systematic review of an organization's activities. It reviews organizations' operations and practices in order to identify potential environmental risks, assess environmental impacts, and recommend measures for environmental management and sustainability. Do you understand? So environmental audits, in other words, in brief, assesses the organization's compliance with environmental laws, regulations, permits, industry standards, and so on. It examines whether organizations meet its legal obligations and fulfilling environmental requirements related to air quality, water management, waste management, hazardous material handling, and environmental aspects, other environmental aspects. Environmental audit. So we are going to discuss a few key points. Key points. Number one, environmental risk identification. Environmental risk identification. Candidates, this process involves environmental audit involves identifying and evaluating potential environmental risks and hazards and hazards associated with the organization's activities. And this may include assessing risks related to pollution, related to resource depletion, related to climate change, related to biodiversity laws, related to other environmental impacts, resource depletion, climate change, air pollution, water pollution, and other environmental impacts. So the audit helps in understanding the extent of such risks and developing strategies to mitigate them. So that's one important aspect of environmental audit. One, environmental risk identification. Then number two is what we call the environmental management system evaluation. Environmental risk management evaluation. This is another key aspect of environmental audit. Now, an environmental audit examines the effectiveness of an organization's environmental management system, what is normally referred to as EMS, environmental management, assessment of an organization's environmental management system, which includes policies, procedures, and practices for managing environmental issues. It assesses whether the EMS is well designed, implemented, and maintained, and whether it provides a framework for continuous improvement in environmental performance. 3. M&E, monitoring and evaluation. Monitoring and evaluation. The audit includes the collection and analysis of environmental data and performance indicators to evaluate the organization's environmental performance. And that may involve measuring resource consumption, measuring waste generation, may involve greenhouse gas emissions, water usage. It may involve identifying areas for improvement, and so on. Monitoring and evaluation, greenhouse gas emissions, and other relevant matters. Measurement or monitoring and evaluation. Measurement and evaluation. In fact, the right word would be measurement, measurement and evaluation. Measurement and evaluation. Measurement and evaluation. There is also stakeholder engagement in environmental audits. Stakeholder engagement. Stakeholder engagement. Environmental audit recognizes the importance of engaging stakeholders, including employees, including the local community, including suppliers, including regulatory authorities, including the environmental interest groups, and so on. So it involves consulting with stakeholders to gather their perspective, to gather their concerns, to gather suggestions, and other suggestions related with the stakeholders, all right, or related to environmental management, suggestions related to environmental management. So stakeholder engagement in this aspect helps in ensuring transparency, accountability, and inclusivity in environmental decision making. Stakeholder engagement. 5. Environmental impact assessment. This is another key aspect of environmental audits. Environmental impact assessment. Environmental impact assessment. Now, in certain cases, candidates' environmental audits may include conducting environmental impact assessments for specific projects or activities. And environmental impact assessments evaluate the potential environmental impacts of proposed projects and provide recommendations for mitigating adverse effects and promoting sustainable development. That is another aspect of environmental audit, environmental impact assessment. Reporting and recommendations. Reporting and recommendations. Reporting and recommendations. Now, candidates, the findings and recommendations of the environmental audit are typically documented in what we call an environmental audit report. And this report outlines the organization's environmental performance. It identifies areas of improvement and provides recommendations for ensuring environmental management and sustainability. And the report sometimes may include action plans, targets, it may include timelines for implementing the recommended measures. Lastly, continuous improvement. Continuous improvement. Environmental audit promotes a culture of continuous improvement. That is improvement in environmental performance. This audit also encourages environmental management practices. And by implementing the audit recommendations and adopting sustainable practices, organizations can reduce their environmental footprint and contribute to the preservation and protection of the environment. We can also say that environmental audit helps organizations assess and manage their environmental impacts, ensuring compliance with environmental regulations, and enhances what we call environmental performance. This audit may also support the integration of environmental considerations into business decision making, and it may also foster sustainability and responsive environmental stewardship. So that will mark the end of the lesson. We've, in our today's lesson, studied special audit assignments, social audit. We've defined social audits. We've then discussed key aspects of social audits. We've defined environmental audits and discussed key aspects of environmental audits. Now, before we take a break, I want us to look at some past paper questions that were tested in relation to social audit and environmental audit. There is a question that was tested in May 2014. There is a long story here about Nyayo Products Limited. Is a leading company in smelting and refining of mineral ore in your country. Your firm XYZ and associates have been the auditors of Nyayo Limited. You attended the annual general meeting for the company that was held on 31st March 2014. During the meeting, your firm was reappointed as auditors for the current period. The company intends to carry out environmental audit in order to comply with the environmental impact assessment regulations. The financial controller has given your audit firm this special assignment. The audit manager of your firm is aware that you are a qualified and an authorized environmental auditor and has therefore assigned you this task. Required: prepare a summary of the contents to be included in the environmental audit report that you would prepare. Required, I repeat, prepare a summary of the contents to be included in the environmental audit report that you would prepare. This is a question that was tested in May 2014. May 2014, question 3. Then in August 2022, question number 5, there is a question part B on Safari Company Limited. Safari Company Limited is a manufacturing company that was established 5 years ago. The company has attained tremendous growth despite the stiff competition from other companies engaged in manufacturing of similar products. The company's management is concerned with reducing the harm that may result from fines and the compensation in case of violation of environmental laws and regulations. At the same time, to maintain its market share, the company intends to give support to the community through social responsibility activities. Required, you have been appointed to evaluate the environmental aspects and social support of the company. Describe the audit procedures that you would perform in order to advise accordingly. Again, in December 2022, question 1, there is a question here. I'll not read it, but the required says, draft a discussion paper focusing on the following, clearly elaborating on each. A, 4 limitations of financial accounting in reflecting the social and environmental impact of organizations. B, 3 objectives of environmental audits. Part C, 6 information components that should be disclosed in an environmental status report. So candidates, I want to give you this assignment, the 3 questions. Attempt the 3 questions. Then you can counter-check your answers with the answers that we have provided in our block revision segment for advanced auditing and assurance. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.